happy Tuesday, and welcome into Hoops Talk with Dave. I'm your host, Dave Smith, here on your March Madness Breakdown episode. We've got a special guest joining us, former co-host with me on Faded Sports Pick'em on Top Shelf Sports, Miles Conrad. Miles, welcome in, welcome back. This is our fifth year-ish doing the bracket breakdown, and so we got to go through it. We know it's always chaotic, always fun. Miles, welcome in.
Oh, absolutely, Dave. So honored to be brought back on here, especially with as bad as my picks have been the last few years. But no, obviously, so hyped to be here. We always have a fun time here, man. Let's run it.
Dude, it is great. And the chaos started when the bracket was announced. No doubt about it. As we dive into tonight's games, first we've got St. Francis, PA taking on Alabama State. That's kind of like your come home from work, take a nap game, because the winner of that one takes on Auburn. I'll take Alabama State just to have Auburn play against Alabama State, I suppose, because those two schools are roughly 40 minutes apart from each other, and they'd be playing each other in Lexington, Kentucky. So I think that'd be fun. But do you have any thoughts on that 16 versus 16 game to start us off?
Yeah, really quick, Dave. I like Alabama State, the Hornets as well. They turned the ball over only 13% of the time, which is very low considering, if you look at other stats across the board, even with some, blue bloods. Alabama State, they take care of the ball, man. They make you pay for it as well. I like Alabama State, controlled game, and I like them to get into the dance.
Oh, yeah, and so that's a great stat right there to start us off. And speaking of blue bloods, you mentioned right there, North Carolina, San Diego State. And I'm just going to throw the floor to you with UNC. I know you're located up there in North Carolina, and so I can't believe they made it in. I know you can't believe it either.
Well, Dave, when your athletic director is head of the committee or a big part of the selection committee, it makes it pretty easy. No, this is UNC bias. Anybody that's in the Carolina area knows that UNC. You talk about Duke and I mean even NC State if you want to throw them into there, but UNC is always taken care of very well, and I am ecstatic to see them lose by 20 to San Diego State.
I was about to say there, Vegas has UNC favored by 3.5 points over the Aztecs, and I haven't been very impressed by San Diego State throughout the year. I mean, but neither of these teams really. This is one of those. The winner of this game gets Ole Miss, and I obviously we're not big Ole Miss people, but I think regardless who wins this game, I'm taking the Rebels to beat them by 25. But yeah. I like what you're thinking there with San Diego State taking them there. We know they're historically have been a very, very tough defensive team, and that really hasn't changed too much this year.
No, absolutely not, Dave. I mean, San Diego State, they have the sixth best transition defense in the country. And you look at North Carolina, man, they're 1 in 12, one win in 13 games in Q1 games. So listen, I think San Diego State, I think 3.5 is too much. That's a lot of UNC bias there, Dave. San Diego State, I think they're going to put up a fight. I agree with you. I don't think either of these teams are impressive. That's why they're playing in these games. But San Diego State, I think their transition is really, because you look at UNC, as soon as they turn over the ball, they give up on the play. And that's happened all year, which is why in those Q1 games, they have one win in 13 games, Dave. So I really like San Diego State here.
I couldn't agree more, and I would love to see UNC lose. Love to see justice be served for us there. And now let's head on over let's get to this bracket. Let's get to this field of 64, and let's start with that South region where we've got the number 1 overall seed, Auburn Tigers there. And for those who are listening, this is your first time listening to a Miles and Dave break down the March Madness. The way we go through this is we'll go region by region. We'll start in the South, and we'll go round of 64, 32, into the Sweet 16 Elite 8, and then each of our winners for that region. So let's start in the South here, Miles, starting with, we both have Alabama State taking down St. Francis, PA. They're taking on the Auburn Tigers. And we've seen 2 16 seeds beat a 1 here in recent history. You taking the Hornets here over the Tigers?
I am not, Dave. I think Auburn and Bruce Pearl has the Tigers in a great spot. Again, the Hornets have some good stats there, but keep it easy, man. Auburn rolls here.
Led by who I think is National Player of the Year, Janai Broome. The Auburn Tigers are poised, and they are set and ready to roll through that first-round matchup. The second game there in Lexington, Louisville and Creighton. This is a fun 8-9 matchup. I think the Cardinals were massively underseeded. I thought they were going to be a 6 seed, maybe even a 5 seed. They come in as an 8, while Clemson on the other side of the bracket gets a 5 seed. Didn't understand that one very much to me. I like Louisville to beat Creighton just because I think they're very underseeded. I think they are favored for a good reason. I like the Cardinals to beat the Blue Jays.
I totally agree, Dave. I think this absolutely should have been a minimum 7 seed, if not a 6 seed, Louisville team. And I like where your mind's at there, Dave. I mean, listen, this is a Cardinals team that makes you pay with their 3 point shooting, right? They shoot 48% of their shots from beyond the arc. And guess what? 33% of those are landing. This is a Cardinals team that is on fire from beyond the arc. This is a Creighton team that you look at that's a very bad matchup because they give up a lot of threes as well on defense. This is a Louisville team. I think they could win by 10 to 12 points here, Dave.
Yeah, I agree with you, and they'll need to see if they can get up big because they got a big matchup coming for them in that round of 32. Moving on down here, this is a very, very fun 5-12 matchup. You've got Big Ten tournament champions, the Michigan Wolverines. They got underseeded, it felt like, or underappreciated, I guess, for how tough it is to win that Big Ten tournament. And they take on one of the best mid majors that I have seen in a long, long time. 30-4, UC San Diego. In their first year of eligibility for the NCAA tournament, they make it, and they are a strong mid major. Michigan taking on UC San Diego. And I'll tell you one thing. I like the Tritons to pull it off. I like them to beat Michigan. I like this 12-5 matchup.
Absolutely, Dave. I mean, this is a UC San Diego team. Listen, I mean, that is they're on fire right now, and a mid-major team that's on fire. You want to ride the hot hand, right, Dave? This is also a Michigan team. You just talked about how difficult it is to win that tournament. I think this Michigan team might be a little tired. And I think that's a great spot for UC San Diego to be in. I mean, I saw UC San Diego opened as a 3.5 point dog. Not sure what it's at now, but I like it. Let's have some fun, man. Why not UC San Diego? I love this to be the first big upset we cover.
Oh, yeah. Right now, Michigan dropped a point now. Michigan only favored by 2.5. Looks like, I'm not sure if that's the public back in the Tritons moving it or just overall action moving it. But one thing that I want to touch on here before we move forward is the turnover differential. Michigan turns the ball over a ton, and the Tritons are in top 10 on both sides of the ball, forcing turnovers and also taking care of the basketball. And so they do a great job with the basketball, doing what they're supposed to do with it. And I think that will be the big difference there. I think Michigan, if you turn the ball over double-digit times against a team like UC San Diego, which they typically do, by the way, they're going to lose this game. There's no way around it for them. I think that they are in trouble there. And we both are on the Tritons to move on to round number 2. Sticking in Denver, over to our 4-13 matchup. Texas A&M taking on Yale. And we saw Yale last year take down Auburn. Does Yale do it again, Miles? Do they do it again?
I don't have them doing it again here, Dave. I really like this Texas A&M team. Obviously, Yale dominated the Ivy League in a 13-1 regular season record. But this is a tough matchup for Yale. Obviously, last year they had some magic, right? A&M's offense, though. I mean, let's talk about them. They their shooting right now is bottom of the country, right? They're the 293rd ranked 2 point percentage team. So this is right. This is a spot for Yale to. I mean, really, Texas A&M. You hear those offensive numbers, you're like, how in the world is this a 4 seed? Let's look at the defensive side of the ball. Texas A&M is not going to give up much to Yale. Dave, I think this is going to be a very low scoring game. We talked about that A&M offense, but Yale as well. I don't think they're going to be able to do much against this Aggies defense. Dave, this could legitimately be like a 61-57 type game for Texas A&M. I have A&M taking it, but I think this is going to be a struggle of a game for both teams.
Oh yeah, and out of all the 4 seeds, Texas A&M is favored by the smallest margin, and I think for good reason, just because of how good Yale is. But I'm with you there. A&M does a great job defensively. They're also the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the entire country. This A&M team, I think, is just too physical for Yale, and I think that's not to discredit Yale. They beat Auburn last year, and they brought back a ton of those guys from that upset team. But I think without a doubt, this veteran-led team by Texas A&M, I remember seeing highlights from a couple of years ago where we saw Texas A&M take on Houston in that very dramatic matchup they had. And I was watching highlights and I was going, wow, there's 3 or 4 key guys from that team, and that was 2 years ago, that are still on this Texas A&M Aggie team. It's a very veteran-led roster. Of course, first-team All-SEC player Wade Taylor. Keep it short and simple here. I like A&M to beat Yale. I think we're in agreement there. And we haven't differentiated yet. Let's see if we do here I don't think we are here either. But as we move down, Ole Miss taking on the winner of San Diego State and North Carolina. It doesn't matter to me who wins that game. I've got the Rebels moving forward.
Keep it easy. Ole Miss moving to the second round.
Yeah, we're in agreement there. Over to Iowa State, the Cyclones taking on Lipscomb. And this is an interesting game to watch here. This one's taking place on Friday. Iowa State losing their second leading scorer for the season as well. He also is their top assist guy, Keyshawn Gilbert, out for the year for the Cyclones. Does that open the door for Lipscomb to take advantage of it? I won't have Lipscomb beating them. I will not. But Iowa State, they're coming in losing one of their key guys.
Well, absolutely, Dave. I mean, you have to at least give Lipscomb a look, right? I mean, their offense has been unbelievable. You've got CBS Sports calling them arguably one of the best 14 seeds of all time, whatever that means in your mind. But no, Lipscomb is a solid 14 seed. This is not a game that people are just going to want to change the channel. I really like the fact that Lipscomb, man, they pull up from everywhere, right? I mean, this is as soon as they cross half court, they're pulling up. Lipscomb is firing the ball. And if it goes in, that's going to put a lot of pressure on this Cyclones defense here. I think Iowa State can pull it out, but this is a sneaky game here, Dave.
Yeah, no doubt about it. This Lipscomb team, I remember watching them take on UNA in their conference championship game, and North Alabama kept fighting. They kept battling, but every time UNA responded, Lipscomb was answering it, and they were answering it stronger and harder. And then when it mattered the most late in the game, Lipscomb was able to take care of business. But I think when it comes down to it, yes, Keyshawn Gilbert is a massive loss for Iowa State. I think the Cyclones just have too much. Yeah, this Iowa State defense, they're a top 10 defense nationally. They're number 9 efficiency-wise, only allowing a certain amount of points a game. I like Iowa State here. I think they're just too much physically to take for Lipscomb to handle in this one. Moving on down to Cleveland into our 7-10 matchup. We've got Marquette taking on New Mexico, and these two teams kind of trending in opposite directions for me. I was a little surprised to see Marquette still get to a 7 seed. I thought they should have been an 8 seed, maybe even potentially a 9 seed. I like New Mexico here as the 10 seed to take down the Marquette Golden Eagles.
Yeah, Dave, I am going to go opposite of you. I hear what you're saying about Marquette, but I really think this is going to be a phenomenal game between the two. I think Marquette is really going to rally here. Also, these are two fantastic defenses, Dave. Just like we were
Oh,
saying
absolutely.
a couple games ago, I believe this could really be a down to the wire. Could we see our first buzzer beater in this game? Maybe. But I really think, the Golden Eagles have gone really toe to toe with St. John's twice in the last 2 weeks, right? And obviously, like you said, injuries will play a factor here. I'm taking Marquette in a very close game here, but I do like Marquette to get the win over New Mexico.
Yeah, Marquette is favored by 3.5 points. The Golden Eagles are over New Mexico. I like this New Mexico team a lot. I might be too high on the Mountain West, and you might notice that as a trend throughout what we're going on here. I think they deserved 5 bids in. Personally, I would have put Boise State over over North Carolina, but of course we did not get that. And I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to keep my mind off of that because it doesn't make any sense to me every time I think about it. Moving on down, 15-2 matchup here between Bryant and Michigan State. Miles, what do you think here? What are you seeing from Izzo's squad?
Well, I'll tell you this, man. I'm going to start with Bryant here. The Bryant Bulldogs. Listen, this is another mid-major team that is very dangerous in that 15 spot here. I think Bryant could potentially even cover here, Dave. Let's look at them. So they hold teams to 47% from the 2-point range, 32% from deep. Izzo's team loves the three-pointer. I think that's going to be a huge matchup there is how well can Izzo's squad get through this Bulldog defense here. Other thing is obviously the transition defense. Spartans love taking advantage of teams in transition. So Bryant, sitting in the 80th percentile in transition D is huge here, I think. I also think, look, Dave, I don't think this is the most elite offense that we've seen from Michigan State yet.
Oh, not at all.
Um,
Not at all.
and I think that defense is going to play huge here. I think this is another game, Dave, where this is going to maybe be a 5-point game coming down the stretch, last 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to take Michigan State to cover, but they're not going to be comfortable this entire game.
Yeah, I like where you're going with that, and I'm gonna go a step farther. I'm gonna take Bryant to beat Michigan State. I like exactly what you're
Woo!
saying here. I love the tempo that Bryant plays at. They love getting up and down the floor. They love creating a lot of possessions. Michigan State's defense is extremely, extremely good. But I think this Bryant team has had nights throughout the year. I've gone back and watched some of their America East footage, and they've had games where they just simply don't miss a whole lot of shots, regardless of who's in their face. They've got a
Yeah.
great starting five. And this team, they don't play a lot of depth, and so they've got 8 really good players they play. And I like Bryant to pull off a massive upset here. Another piece of it of a little tidbit, historical tidbit for you here. No top 2 seed that was outside the preseason AP top 25 has ever made the Final Four. And so typically they're out of it in the first weekend. Michigan State was not ranked in that AP Top 25 preseason. And that doesn't mean they're going to lose to Bryant. I just like their matchup with Bryant. I watched the reveal take place on Sunday night, and I said, if they call Bryant's name here against Michigan State, I would have done it against St. John's too. But if they call Bryant's name, I'm taking Bryant, and that is where I've got him. I've got Bryant going on to the second round. Welcome the Bulldogs there. That's a late Friday night game, too. You don't want to miss that one.
Absolutely not. I think you're right, Dave. I think that's going to be a huge, huge matchup and a great way to end the night and potentially a massive upset. You can't beat that.
Now, as we head into the second round here in the South region, we've got Auburn taking on Louisville. Both have Auburn taking on Louisville. And I will go ahead and keep the chaos going. Why don't I? I'll go ahead and keep the chaos going. This game taking place in Lexington, Kentucky. Talk about that for the Auburn Tigers, having that right in Louisville's backyard, not too far away. I like Louisville to take down Auburn. I think everything they could have had to play with a chip on their shoulder heading into this tournament just got answered. They were supposed to be a 5 seed, 6 seed, at worst 7 seed. They come up with an 8 seed, and they're playing an Auburn team that has been struggling down the stretch. They have not done well. They closed the season 1-3 on the year, 7-4 on their last 11 games. They don't look like this Auburn team we saw throughout the first 3/4 of the season. They look vulnerable right now. I think Louisville has what it takes to take advantage of that. I'll take the Cardinals into the Sweet 16.
Yeah, Dave. A little stat for you here. Obviously, Bruce Pearl. He's not necessarily one to play with his food, right, in his career. If as a big favorite, and they were. We imagine they're going to be a huge favorite in the first round. And I gotta imagine Vegas is going to give Auburn a pretty big cushion here. I'm going to take Auburn to win, but I think Louisville is right there to cover. I mean, I think this potentially could be Auburn's biggest test until they get potentially to the Elite Eight. Really, I mean, like you said, I mean, we're both really high on this Louisville team. I'd hate to see them go out in the second round, but I think Auburn takes care of business here. I don't think Bruce Pearl is going to mess around here when it's down the stretch and the pressure's on. Bruce Pearl, as we've seen this year, game in and game out, has drawn up the plays to win. You got to go with Bruce Pearl.
Oh, yeah. Bruce is an incredible coach. He might be the best coach in the entire country, without a doubt. This Auburn team, very veteran led. I just think, based on the way these two teams are trending right now, and just because maybe I just want the chaos personally, I like Louisville to pull off that. I think they are criminally underseeded, and I think that Auburn got a terrible draw with potentially playing Louisville in Lexington, Kentucky. That sucks for Auburn, but I'll take Louisville over them there, but I think you've got the right pick there, taking Auburn over Louisville. On to our second round in Denver. I think we both have UC San Diego facing off against Texas A&M, and I'll start it here. I'll go ahead and have my first double-digit seed into the Sweet 16. I like the Tritons to take advantage of A&M's lack of ability to shoot the three ball. I think that the A&M is not a good enough three-point shooting team to make it deep into this tournament, and I think UC San Diego will take advantage of that. They've won 30 out of their 34 games this season for a reason. I like them to beat the A&M Aggies and clinch a spot in the Sweet 16.
Whew, well, Dave's middle name is Chaos, Mister Dave Chaos Smith. Absolutely, man. What a pick there. God, this UC San Diego team. I mean, how do you not pick them? Unfortunately, I'm going back to the well with Texas A&M here in a close game, a potentially overtime game here. I mean, I think I think A&M here, Dave, I think they're going to learn a lot from the Yale matchup, right? I think Yale plays a similar game that Texas A&M can figure out how to defend, UC San Diego and Yale offensively. I think Texas A&M is going to learn a lot about their team from that first round matchup with Yale. I think they're going to be fired up here, but again, I think San Diego takes them to the brink here. Give me A&M in an absolute second round thriller.
Yeah, and I want everybody to know as we keep moving forward through this, that's three back-to-back matchups I've had with chaos ensuing. The South region is by far my craziest region. As far as that goes, it is just a gold mine for chaos as far as I'm concerned. And let's keep it rolling here. Ole Miss and Iowa State. I really, really wanted to pick the Rebels here, especially with Keyshawn Gilbert out. I just can't get past how good we've seen Iowa State look this year. And yes, that's with Keyshawn Gilbert, but this is a deep team. They've got depth. They've got a lot of talent. I think Iowa State beats Ole Miss, the 3 seed in the South region. I've got them moving on to the Sweet 16.
I'll keep it simple. I'm right there with you, Dave. See it the exact same way. Iowa State is just they're just too good of a team for Ole Miss. We've seen Ole Miss struggle this year. They're not going to be able to keep up with Iowa State. I love them moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if we get down into that Cleveland round 2 in the South region, Miles has Marquette taking on Michigan State, which is probably what's going to happen. And I have New Mexico taking on Bryant in the round of 32. I'll take the Lobos of New Mexico to move on over Bryant. Incredible win for the Bryant Bulldogs, but I think New Mexico, they have got Donovan Dent, an incredible guard for New Mexico. He's going to be one of those players that we talk about for marches to come because of how incredible he is watching and how fun it is to watch this New Mexico team. This New Mexico team was number 1 in the Mountain West this year's regular season for good reason. And so I like UNM to move on to the Sweet 16. The 10 seed Lobos, they take down Bryant.
Oh man, this would be absolute chaos, man. I am sticking. I'm holding myself back a little bit. I have a Michigan State and Marquette second round matchup. I'm going with Izzo's squad. Dave, a lot like I was saying with Texas A&M. I think Izzo, obviously being one of the top coaches in the country, he's going to learn a lot from that Bryant matchup as well. Bryant is really going to push this Michigan State team to their brink. I think that's going to be enough, and then they're going to be fired up, right? And again, I don't love the Marquette pick out of the first round. I think Michigan State. I think this could be if it is Michigan State and Marquette, I think Michigan State could potentially win this game by 10 points. I think it would be they're in a bounce back sort of spot coming from that first round matchup with Bryant. If Bryant performs how we both think they are going to, I think Michigan State is sort of a get right game against Marquette, and they move into the Sweet 16.
Now we are into our Sweet 16 in our South region. Miles has, correct me if I'm wrong here, Miles, Auburn, Texas A&M, Iowa State, and Michigan State. And
Correct.
I've got Louisville, UC San Diego, Iowa State, and New Mexico. So why don't we start in that top part there? This will be taking place in Atlanta. I've got Louisville taking on UC San Diego. And why stop the Tritons there? Why stop them? And this is statistically one of the best mid-majors that we have ever seen. And this is not only one of the best mid-majors we've ever seen, I think this is one of the best teams in all of college basketball. I've got them as a top 12 team this year. I like UC San Diego to keep the ball rolling, roll on into the Elite Eight, taking down Louisville.
Well, Dave, in a sort of SEC championship fashion in Atlanta, I have Auburn and Texas A&M, and I am taking the Auburn Tigers. It's chalky. I know I can hear the listeners now. It's what a chalky pick, but I think this Auburn team has the experience from a coaching perspective as well as the players to just keep on rolling, man. I think, and this is Auburn is absolutely going to expose Texas A&M for what they are and specifically what they are not, which is a Elite Eight team. So give me the Auburn Tigers.
Into the bottom of this Atlanta regional, I've got Iowa State taking on New Mexico, and I will take the Cyclones to keep it rolling. I get the injury factor playing for them there. I think without a doubt, this Cyclones team, it has enough talent. They are loaded. They look like one of the best teams in the country in November. I think they still look like one of the better teams in the country now. And with this draw they've got here, taking on New Mexico, I like them to end the Cinderella run for the Lobos. I've got Iowa State moving on to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, very similar. I have Iowa State against Michigan State, and I have Iowa State moving on as well, Dave. I think injuries will play a small factor here, but I just kind of like how you are with San Diego, man. I love this Iowa State team. I think they can absolutely make Michigan State pay here. And I have a awesome Elite Eight matchup coming up with Auburn and Iowa State. But give me Iowa State to move on.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of that Elite Eight matchup, here we are. Winner of this game goes to the Final Four. I've got UC San Diego taking on Iowa State, and I will end the Tritons run here. I'll take Iowa State. And look, I don't love this Iowa State team as much as I once did, especially with the injury to Keyshawn Gilbert. But this path they have here, they've got Lipscomb, in my bracket at least, they've got Lipscomb, Ole Miss, New Mexico, and UC San Diego. As far as a four-team path to the Final Four goes, it doesn't get much better than that for the Iowa State Cyclones. So I think just by the amount of chaos that's going on around Iowa State is the beneficiary of it, and I've got them going into the Final Four.
Wow, man, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think Iowa State, listen, you play the games that are on your schedule, right? And if chaos falls around them, but even if it doesn't, I think this Iowa State team is good enough to get here to the Elite Eight. But I do have another chalk pick, but I do have the Auburn Tigers moving on to the Alamo Dome and the Final Four. But again, so much credit to this Iowa State team, Dave. I mean, this is they've been on a heck of a run already this year, and would love to see them get all the way to an Elite Eight.
So that will wrap up our South region. Miles has Auburn taking the South region. I've got the Iowa State Cyclones taking the South region. Now, as we move down your bracket, so if you're looking along at your bracket with us, moving down your bracket into the West region, where Florida is the number one seed, they take on Norfolk State. I've got Florida by probably about 6,000 in this one. Short and sweet.
Yeah, man, 757 represent the Norfolk State Spartans. Again, won their tournament, and they are a great team in their own rank. But unfortunately, they're going to get chumped by this Gators team. Florida by 65.
Couldn't agree more. This Florida team is playing like the best team in the country, and they sure are going to keep looking like it against Norfolk State. Moving on to a fun 8-9 matchup there, also in Raleigh. UConn taking on Oklahoma, and I struggled with this one. I really did. I didn't know where to go with this back and forth. I think pretty simply either one of these teams gets, like I like the way you used this word earlier, chomped by the Gators. But I'll take UConn to beat Oklahoma just because UConn's been here. They've done it before. Not to take anything away from the season Oklahoma has had. I'll just take UConn. I think this is a close game, a really fun game to watch, but I will take the Huskies moving on to the round of 32.
Yeah, pretty crazy after the last two seasons seeing UConn at an 8 seed, but obviously this isn't the. This has been a very unexpected season for that Hurley squad there in UConn. But again, I think you're right, Dave. I mean, obviously, UConn blocks a ton of shots, the most per game in the country. We know that this Dan Hurley team is aggressive. Uh, Listen to this, Dave. They are ranked 333rd in free throw rate allowed this season. So they don't take a lot of fouls either. Again, you got that experience with a championship coach. I think just having that experience, Hurley's going to draw up the plays that will get this UConn team over Oklahoma. But a strange UConn team compared to years past, Dave.
Yeah, definitely not what everybody expected. I think when they came out of that invitational they played in November and they went 0-3 there, they lost 3 games. They came in as the overwhelming favorite there, lost 3 games. Everybody took a step back and was like, whoa, this is not the same UConn team. And they show it now. They are back here as an 8th seed, and this is not where you expected to see them, but I think we are in agreement that they get past round 1. Moving into Seattle, moving out west, the Memphis Tigers, who I think they got overseeded, the Memphis Tigers did, as they take on the Mountain West champions, the Colorado State Rams. And I'll take Colorado State here. This is a fun one to look at because Colorado State, as the 12th seed, is just straight up favored over Memphis, which is fun, crazy to see that the Rams are 2.5-point favorites over the Memphis Tigers, but I think for good reason. I like Colorado State here. It's a long travel out there for Memphis, and I don't think they're going to have a lot of fans travel with them. I like Colorado State to own that arena and win this game. I'll take them by 10 plus in this one.
Yeah, Dave. I mean, I love the Colorado State pick there. Quickly about Memphis, the reason why I believe they were a little overseeded. Obviously, schedule plays a big part in seeding, and they played the fourth best non-conference schedule in the country per KenPom. Memphis also chalked up wins over Missouri, UConn, Michigan State, Clemson, and Ole Miss. So you can rank those wins however you like. But this is listen, a Colorado State team that's won 10 straight games, three in a row to claim the Mountain West tournament title, like you said. This is going to be an unbelievable matchup here. I like Colorado State here, Dave, as well. I think like you said, some of those games again, they're counting Ole Miss as a marquee win, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Over UConn is big though, but yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for Colorado State to potentially start a big run here, Dave.
Oh, I like that foreshadowing as we be moving forward. I like that there. But yeah, we're in agreement. The Colorado State Rams. This has been a very underappreciated team, I think, this year. If they didn't win the Mountain West tournament, they weren't going to make the NCAA tournament, which I think, is blasphemous. And especially as we saw the way things unfolded. Colorado State closed the season strong. They're going to keep that momentum rolling there. Over to our other matchup in Seattle, Maryland and Grand Canyon. GCU. Hey, this is a fun team. The Lopes of Grand Canyon. I'm going to take Maryland there. I think they're led by one of the best big men, especially freshman big men in the country, Derek Queen. This Maryland team has been battle tested throughout the Big Ten. I think if GCU could have gotten a different matchup, maybe a Purdue or even a Clemson, it would be different. But against Maryland, I don't like Grand Canyon to win this one. I'll take the Terps to move on.
Yeah, Dave, this is going to be a wide open game offensively for Maryland. I mean, Maryland listen, they are quietly playing some of the best basketball in the country. And listen, a year after Grand Canyon knocked off St. Mary's in that 5-12 game, they're back looking for another upset, Dave. Here, but again, this is not the same Grand Canyon team of last year. They're still as much fun as advertised, but Maryland, my gosh, Dave, do they ever play well, especially down the stretch? They show up big. Here's the other thing, Dave, and we just talked about this. A key that I always look for in these matchups is fouling. Maryland doesn't foul. They're 28th in defensive free throw rates, and they're also 23rd in turnover rates. So top 25 in the country for holding on to the basketball. They do not want to give Grand Canyon the opportunity. That's what happened last year, Dave. If you remember that St. Mary's game, especially going down the stretch, a ton of turnovers that this Grand Canyon team really, really took advantage of. They're not going to be able to do that against this Maryland team. Give me the Terps moving on to a second round.
Could not agree more with you there as we move down into Wichita, Missouri, and Drake. Talk about a fun first round matchup between the Tigers and the Bulldogs. And I think everybody had Drake kind of at the top of their list of Cinderellas this year. They were a team that has been great all year long. They were going to make it at large, I want to think. I don't know, based on their 11 seed, I'm kind of second guessing this statement now, but I want to think that we're going to make it at large, whether or not they won the Missouri Valley Conference Championship or not, because they've just been that dominant. They've only lost 3 games all year, but they haven't played a team like Missouri. I'll tell you one thing, they haven't played this Missouri Tigers team. I'll take Mizzou. They are extremely athletic, extremely fun to watch, and they are really, really good at knocking down the 3 ball. I'll take Mizzou over Drake.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. I mean, you talked about Drake as a popular pick this year. They're 2-0 against power conference opponents. Now, that was Vanderbilt and Kansas State. Here's the difference, Dave. These two teams play completely different styles of basketball, right? I mean, Drake it is like pulling teeth getting them down the court. Missouri is Harlem Globetrotters flying, screaming across the arena, right? Mizzou is a foot on the gas pedal all game long. There is no way Drake is going to be able to stop that for an entire game. There's just no way, Dave. I like Mizzou moving on. I think Drake could be a popular pick, but man, you just look at the playing styles, and it's not a good matchup for Drake here.
Yeah, not at all. Missouri's top 5 offensive efficiency in the country. They're number 5 out of all the teams in all Division One. And Drake wants to keep the game at the slowest pace. They actually ran the 364th fastest pace in all of college basketball. So they love to slow it down. But you're right. Missouri's going to get out and run on this team, and they are going to run away with this one. Could not agree more with you there. And hey, how about this matchup here? This is a fun one. Maybe you can shine some light on UNC Wilmington here as they take on Texas Tech, the Red Raiders. I've got Tech rolling here. This UNC Wilmington team, they take care of the basketball well. They play very efficiently. They don't make a lot of mistakes, and that's how they've gotten to this point. But they haven't played a team like the Red Raiders. That's just what it comes down to with some of these mid-majors in the games that they play against these certain matchups they get. I don't like this matchup for UNC Wilmington. I've got the Seahawks going down to the Red Raiders.
Yeah, Dave, really what this UNC Wilmington team has is size. All of their guards are 6'5" or taller. You got to look at as well. I mean, the monsters down the middle, 7 feet tall, 280-pound. Harlan Obiha has been a monster for this Seahawks team. You've also got Kamari McGriff down the middle. He is absolutely physical in the lane. But again, I mean, UNC Wilmington, they're a fun team. But again, this Texas Tech, it's just too much, man. It's too much. UNC Wilmington has not had to face an offense like Texas Tech's all year. The few that they've had to, they have struggled with. So Texas Tech, as long as their offense is buzzing, man, they're going to cruise here. Love to see local representation with the Seahawks. I absolutely love the Wilmington area, but unfortunately, their dance is going to be a short one.
Yeah, Texas Tech shooting 19th in the country from three. They're shooting almost 38% from behind the arc. And UNC Wilmington shooting 33% down there below the 200s. And that's just not what you want to see. Typically, when you see these
No.
mid-majors get big victories because they shoot the three well, and UNC
Yep.
Wilmington does not. They are big, but I think when you put big up against really physical, and that's what Texas Tech is, I like the
Yeah.
Red Raiders there. Moving on to a really, really fun coaching matchup here in Providence. You've got Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks taking on John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks. Couldn't ask for much better here as far as that matchup goes. In Providence, Arkansas, they'll be getting Boogie Fland back. And I think that might be a bad thing for the Razorbacks, not because of the type of player Boogie Fland is, just because of the rhythm that Arkansas is in. And I know they'll probably play him sparingly because he's coming back from injury. I don't think it matters. I think Hunter Dickinson and Kansas will get the victory over Arkansas.
Yeah, Dave, absolutely agree with you there. I am on the Kansas side here. Just for a little context on the Arkansas side, obviously they started SEC play with 5 straight losses. Everybody's like, what is going on with Calipari? They responded. Again, I agree with you, Dave. I think with him coming back into the starting five, I mean, this is they Arkansas has had a great rhythm. You could even see their play during the SEC tournament. I'm with you there, Dave. I think it could shake things up a little bit. Kansas, listen to this, Dave. Kansas closes out games. They were 14-4 this season with a 6 point lead with less than 20 seconds to play, right, in games. So they close out games. But yeah, Dave, I mean, Kansas, listen, this is a team that's going to make you pay. And Kansas really, behind the 3 point line, they don't make you pay, but they drive the lane. I think they're going to wear down this Arkansas defense. I think, like you said, it's going to be a great game. What an unbelievable coaching matchup, especially in the first round. We should absolutely enjoy that and appreciate that. But this is going to be a really fun game, Dave. I like Kansas to win. I'm not sure how they're going to get there, though. I think this is going to be a wild ride of a 7-10 game.
Yeah, I think both of these teams could really end up in the 80s. I think this is a high-scoring,
Yeah.
fun affair, and not just be. I mean, these are two good defenses, but I think when you just put this much talent on a floor together with these two teams facing off, you're going to see some points scored, especially when it matters the most. But I agree with you there. And talk about the coaching matchup potentially in the next round as we move on down to St. John's taking on Omaha. I picked the 15-2 upset in the South region. I'm not picking it here. I like Patino and St. John's to roll over Omaha.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's unbelievable how well Rick Pitino has the St. John's team playing. Obviously, it wouldn't be March if Pitino's name wasn't in the tournament. That's just the way it's been. And especially Omaha's defense is just egregious, Dave. This is going to be a good warm up for St. John's here.
As we head back to the top of the round of 32, Florida taking on UConn. I've got the Gators rolling. I think we've talked about how this UConn team is not the same as it has been. And they've got the tournament experience. They've definitely got the coaching experience. But this Gators team is just so loaded. They're just so incredible to watch play basketball. And I've got them rolling over this UConn team. I think they might win this one by 20. They might just dominate UConn. And that would be a scene to see in March. I've got the Gators moving on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, Dave, I'm right there with you. I mean, this is where they're going to make UConn pay, right? The Gators grab 38% of offensive rebounds. They also shoot over 35% from deep. That is just going to sink this UConn team here. I think Florida rolls again, man. I think you're right.
And this next matchup is one that I have battled with back and forth. Colorado State taking on Maryland. And man, I really do. I really want to take Colorado State to beat Maryland, but I just can't bring myself to do it. For whatever, I mean, I made all those crazy picks in the South region. I've picked chaos in years prior, but for whatever reason, I just cannot seem to take Maryland losing to Colorado State. I've got the Terps moving on. They've got a top 30 offense, a top 10 defense. I think they'll be too much for the Rams to handle. And I think Derek Quinn on the inside will cause a lot of problems. I like him to go for 20-12 and beat the Colorado State Rams.
You know, Dave, the C in Conrad also stands for chaos, and I'm taking the Colorado State Rams to beat Maryland and move on to the Sweet 16. This is my team, man. I am all about this Colorado State team here. Obviously, a tough matchup after this, but I think they can take care of business with Maryland here, man. I mean, I listen. I know I absolutely hyped up Maryland uh, just 5 minutes ago, but what man, momentum in March is huge. And I think Colorado State starting off with are going to consider a big upset win over Memphis. Man, that's going to fire that locker room up. Then you move into Maryland. I think they can take care of business with Maryland as well. I really like this Colorado State team, Dave.
Yeah, and there's a lot to like about them, for sure. And a little tidbit here about Maryland. Going back to, they lost to Oregon on January 5th. Since then, they've lost 4 games. They lost on a game-winning shot against Northwestern at the buzzer on January 16th. On February 6th, they lost on a game-winning shot from Ohio State with about 6 seconds to go. On February 26th, they lost to Michigan State on that half-court heave that we saw at the
Yep.
buzzer. And then this past Saturday, we saw them lose to Michigan in the Big Ten semifinal, where they lost on a Trey Donaldson shot with 1/10 of a second remaining. And so they've either won the game since going back to January 5th, they've either won or they've lost on a shot within the last 6 seconds. So this Maryland team, I mean, they have these fans, these poor fans have been through the ringer watching their team lose all these heartbreaking games. But in the games they win, they're typically not winning close. They're winning by a lot of points. I think that will just
Yeah.
kind of separate them here. But hey, if Colorado State's going to beat them, they'll beat them at the buzzer, it seems. That seems to be the trend here with Maryland. Moving on down here, we both got Missouri taking on Texas Tech. And I'm going to take the upset here. I'm riding with Mizzou over the Red Raiders. I like this Missouri Tigers team a lot. I love how physical they play, and I really love the amount of guys that can light up the three-point arc. They've got so many guys that can beat you from beyond the arc. I've watched this Missouri team play throughout this year. I think they beat Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is a very, very hot pick to not only make the Final Four out of this region, but I've seen a lot of people picking them to win it all. Not in my bracket. I've got the Missouri Tigers taking them down and booking their spot in the Sweet 16.
Huge pick there, Dave. I am going with the Raiders, the Red Raiders of Texas Tech, man. I think this is a big look. I know it's a 3-6 matchup here that I have with Texas Tech and Missouri. But I think, man, I just really like this Texas Tech team. I think it's almost, even though they are the higher seed, almost an upset because all the spotlight has been on Missouri and how just dominant of a year this Missouri Tigers team has had. Texas Tech, man, I absolutely love their offense. I think that this is again they're going to build off that UNC Wilmington win, just like I was saying with just like with Colorado State. I think this is going to be the first big test for Texas Tech. Obviously, and going from Wilmington to Missouri, that's a big step up, right? But this Texas Tech offense, I think they can handle pretty much anything. And A little foreshadowing for you. I think it's going to do well for them as the tournament goes on. Give me the Red Raiders of Texas Tech.
Moving down to that last matchup in the second round in our West region, Kansas and St. John's. Now you went from Coach Self against Coach Calipari, and now you've got Patino against Bill Self, and another great coaching matchup. I still like Patino. He's got the edge here. I think the St. John's roster is loaded with talent. I'll take the Red Storm to storm on into the Sweet 16.
I'm right there with you. Nice and simple, man. Patino's squad is going to continue to roll.
Yeah, I think that first round matchup between Arkansas and Kansas might play a role into it, just of how draining it will be for Kansas there. Moving back into the Sweet 16 of our West region, Miles has Florida, Colorado State, Texas Tech, and St. John's. And I have got Florida, Maryland, Missouri, and St. John's. Let's start up top here with this first matchup in the West Regional, which will take place in San Francisco. I've got Florida versus Maryland. Give me the Gators rolling right along. I love this Maryland team a lot. And if they were playing a lot of other teams besides Florida, I would take them. But this Gators team, man, they are rolling. They just coming off this SEC title championship, working their way up into a 1 seed. They're not showing any signs of slowing down. Todd Golden has this squad ready to roll. I've got Florida taking down Maryland into an Elite Eight spot.
Oh, chomp, chomp, man. I'm right there with you. I love this Colorado State team. I think Colorado State's going to give them some pressure, but I could see a 7 to 8 point win here for Florida. Like you said, man, this is just an elite squad playing at their best at the time that it matters the most, right? I mean, going through that SEC tournament, it was almost effortless for this Florida Gators team. And at this point, too, I mean, this has been a long run for Colorado State. I'm not sure they have the stamina to get this deep into the tournament. Give me Florida here. No disrespect to Colorado State, but the Gators, man, holy smokes! I don't know if there's a team in the country that wants to face them.
I don't blame them. Not at all. Not a chance. Moving on down, once again, Miles has Texas Tech taking on St. John's. I've got the Missouri Tigers taking on St. John's, and I don't think the Missouri Tigers run stops there. I don't think so. I'm going to take Mizzou rolling over St. John's, and that might be a little crazy just because of how good Patino has the St. John's team looking. But Missouri, I mean, they've got a top 5 offense. The number 15 in Ken Palm. They shoot very well from beyond the arc, and not only that, but they shoot really efficiently just across the floor. And they do a great job taking care of the basketball. And I think when you're playing such a tough defensive team like St. John's, Missouri has the perfect makeup to be able to take down the Red Storm. I've got Mizzou headed to the Elite Eight.
Mizzou in the Elite Eight. Holy smokes! I got Texas Tech and St. John's, and I think Rick Pitino's run stops here. Dave, I'm taking Texas Tech to barn rush their way into the Elite Eight, taking down St. John's in what could be a game of the tournament. I would love to see a Texas Tech St. John's matchup. Absolute high flying basketball, but give me the Red Raiders in a huge Final Four matchup.
And now to our Elite Eight. We've got right here Florida. I've got Florida and Missouri in an all SEC Elite Eight. Miles has Florida and Texas Tech in the Elite Eight right here. I've got the Gators. I've got the 1 seed Gators. They're going to keep rolling. Florida has played this Missouri team already earlier this year. They played them twice this year. One time did go to Missouri. Don't get me wrong. One of the times did go to Missouri. This is one of the most puzzling results of the year. You look back at it, and Missouri went into Gainesville, and they beat Florida. But this time, I've got the Gators. Simply put, rolling over Missouri. I think they'll just be too much. These two opponents are very familiar with each other. I think it'll be a fun game to watch, but I've got Florida punching their ticket to San Antonio into the Final Four.
Yeah, Dave, I misspoke. I went a little early. But yes, in my Elite Eight matchup, I have Florida and Texas Tech. Uh, Florida will be moving on to the Final Four. Didn't mean to drop that nugget a little early, but I think everybody knows this Florida team is just gonna roll through this region, which is impressive to say because it's not an easy road here for this Florida team. I mean, Dave, we talked about in the last region. Some teams just play the schedule they have. Well, Florida, my gosh. I mean, Norfolk State, okay, but UConn against the defending champs. You've got Colorado State team, in my eyes, that I think will put up a good fight. Um, and now a Texas Tech team, which I view very highly. But I think this is a Florida team on a mission, and those teams we don't say that very often every year, Dave. But when they're on a mission, they're going a long way in this tournament. I think the Gators are chomping their way to the Alamo Dome.
And now we are halfway through this gauntlet of a bracket. Miles has Auburn and Florida in his Final Four. I've got Iowa State and Florida in my Final Four so far. So if you need to take a break, you need to go grab some lunch, grab a drink, whatever you need to do before we get into the second half of the bracket, now would be your time to do so. But why don't we head up into the East region where Duke sits as the number 1 seed. They'll take on the winner of tomorrow night's game, between American and Mount St. Mary's. Regardless who wins that game, Duke. And I think regardless of whether or not Cooper Flagg plays, I know his health is in question with that sprained ankle. I think he'll be ready to go by the time we roll around to Friday's matchup, but I've got the Duke Blue Devils rolling over that 16 seed into the second round.
Yeah, Dave. I mean, you never want to take your opponent lightly, and obviously not having Cooper Flagg, who has been unbelievable as a freshman, Dave. One of the best freshmen we've seen in recent memory, I think. We obviously hope that ankle heals up nicely for the Blue Devils. But like you said, with American or Mount St. Mary's, I mean, this is an incredible Duke team. That again, this could be looked at as a warm up game for them. The Blue Devils roll here
Into our 8-9 matchup in the East region, our Mississippi State
Oh,
Bulldogs taking on the Baylor Bears. And I think as far as matchups go, I am thrilled to not be playing UConn or playing Gonzaga. I'll say that, or playing Louisville over there as well, or Creighton.
yeah.
Out of those, I'm glad we avoided them and taking on Baylor. I'm going to take the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I think Cameron Matthews is the X factor in this game for me. He does so much across the floor. He really is that Marcus Smart guy that just really takes your team to another level. And when he's playing well, Mississippi State's playing well. And so I'll take the Bulldogs in a Cam Matthews clinic to beat Baylor and move on to face off with Duke in the round of 32.
Whoo, man, the dentist would be doing work big time there. Dave, if the fans know we are Mississippi State people and we know how games like this usually go. But you know what? I want to say it's different this year. Love Chris Jans as a coach. Obviously, you talk about Josh Hubbard, the unbelievable impact on the offensive side that he's made for the Dogs. But Dave, I'm unfortunately going to go with Baylor here. This could go either way. I think the rankings are right for an 8 and 9 seed here for both these teams. This just feels like a game where, because that's the thing, right, Dave? The Mississippi State offense, if it goes cold, it is frozen cold, and we've seen that this year, where it's like, my gosh, they only won by 3 points against insert mid-major here or non-conference opponent here. But I like Chris Jans' squad to keep it close, but unfortunately, I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears here. It pains me to do it, man, but especially if I'm sitting there at the Lenovo Center in Raleigh Friday, I got a feeling that Baylor might take this one, man. Unfortunately.
Hey, and I want everybody to know he's saying this with his Mississippi State diploma hanging behind him. I can feel it. It's over there.
That's right.
It's over there on the wall. But no, I mean, we know better than anybody else how Mississippi State does these games, and I don't think you're wrong there. I told you before we went on, this is one of those type of games where Mississippi State's going to be up by 7 with a minute and a half to go, and Baylor closes the game on a 9-0 run and breaks our heart. That's what happens as you're a Mississippi State fan. That's how it goes. But I think either way, no matter who wins that game, go ahead and preview the round of 32 here. They get waxed by Duke. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, 100%.
Into our 5-12 matchup. And this is a really, really fun 5-12 matchup between Oregon and Liberty. And I think this is one that I haven't seen anybody talk about. Everyone's talking about the other 12 seeds. Everyone's talking about UC San Diego, Colorado State, and you're talking about McNeese just because of last year. I've even heard more talk about 13 seeds like Grand Canyon and Yale. No one's giving any credit to Liberty Flames. I will. I've got Liberty beating Oregon. This is a great Liberty team. They've got the second highest effective field goal percentage in all of college basketball. And on the flip side, defensively, they've got the 10th best effective field goal percentage defensively. So they defend the shots really well. They shoot the fifth best percentage from beyond the arc. They're shooting almost 40% from three as a team from beyond the arc. And they hold opponents to 28% from three beyond the arc. They shoot incredibly well. This is a really fun team to watch. I've got the Flames taking on the Ducks, moving on to the round of 32.
Man, Dave, this is one of those games we talked about before we pressed record. Man, this is one of those teams where it's like I want to take Liberty so bad. A few things here though, Dave. Like, I mean, obviously you talked about effectiveness from behind the arc. Liberty, a top 10 nationally in 3-point shooting percentage. You laid that out nicely. But they also do it at a slower pace as well. So they make you pay and they make their shots. I think a big thing here, Dave, could be travel, right? I mean, Oregon's only going to really Seattle, right? And so this is going to be a pretty much home atmosphere for Oregon. Uh, Liberty, man, having to travel all the way across the country, that's one of those little things. Again, who knows, right? That's travel is one of those things as fans we always like to say. I'll tell you this though, Oregon as well, having the 7-footer Nate Biddle right under the basket for rebounding. I think that could be huge for Oregon. I am going to go with the Ducks here. I'm going with the 5 seed Ducks here. However, I think this is like it seems a few 5-12 games. This is going to be uncomfortable for Oregon fans the entire game. I'll say that.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. And this Oregon team has been one of the most confusing teams to watch throughout the year.
Yes.
They've got a ton of quad one victories. They've also lost some really, really bad games. They've lost that loss to Minnesota really jumps out at you, including the loss to Nebraska. Some of these games and some of the ones they played close as well. That none of this has been comfortable for Oregon throughout the year. So Oregon fans, you're used to being uncomfortable. Prepare to be uncomfortable again later this week. Moving on to our 4-13 matchup between Arizona and Akron. Both these teams love to get up and down the floor. And I think when you're looking at the difference in matchups here, typically if you're an underdog like Akron and you play as fast as they do, as fast as the Zips do, you want to match up with a team that doesn't like to play fast. You want to make them uncomfortable. You want to get out, play your brand of basketball. Unfortunately for them, Arizona loves to play fast. They love to get up and down and score the basketball. And for that reason, I'm going to stick with the Wildcats of Arizona. They move on to the round of 32.
Dave, you nailed every point that I was going to say. I'll echo it back. Yep, I will take Arizona as well. Great analysis there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just a tough matchup for Akron. Not to discredit how great this team has played throughout this season in the
Yep,
Zips and winning their conference, but it's an unfortunate matchup for them. And who knows? Maybe
it's
maybe
tempo.
Arizona will go ice cold. They might. I mean, maybe the
They
Wildcats can
could.
go ice cold and Akron can pull it off. I don't see it though, and I don't think you see it either.
It's Yeah, it's that tempo, man. Arizona is not going to stop the entire time, man, and Akron's just not going to have enough for it, unfortunately.
100% could not agree more. Over into a fun one. This is Ken Palm's number one rated matchup on Thursday, VCU and BYU. Talk about a first round matchup between VCU and BYU. This VCU team has been incredibly fun to watch. They've got the number one overall defensive effective field goal percentage. So teams struggle scoring on them. For BYU, they've got a really, really good offense. They've got the seventh best effective field goal percentage throughout this season. So it's going to come down to BYU's offense versus VCU's defense. And in March, if you're giving me offense versus defense, I'm taking offense. I'll take the BYU Cougars. Moving on to the round of 32.
I'm with you, Dave. I am taking BYU as well. The one thing that I will say that could hurt BYU here is the turnovers. BYU turns over the ball in the top 20 percentile in the country, right? I mean, they turn over the ball a lot. This is a VCU team, especially with the VCU guards. They will make you pay with that, right? And I think that's why this is one of the top matchups is seeing if that VCU team, that defense can stand up to that BYU offense. Like you said there, Dave, give me offense in March. I am taking the Cougs.
Yeah, this is a BYU team as well, coming in red hot. They have been playing some
Yes.
incredible basketball. I think if you put it into Torvik, if you put best team since February 1st. BYU's top 5 as far as that goes. Your Colorado State Rams are not far behind them. They're in the top 10. But BYU, I mean, they've played incredible basketball so far this year, and I think they keep that rolling through that VCU matchup at least. Over here, Wisconsin taking on Montana. I'll keep this short and simple. People are starting to take Montana over Wisconsin, and I don't know why. I just don't see this one. I think that everything that Wisconsin does well, Montana does poorly. And so this Montana defense is not good. The one thing that Montana has been great at is getting lucky. They're actually number 1 overall in Ken Palm's luck rating. And that is what Montana is. And they've been lucky enough to get this matchup against Wisconsin where they will get thrashed. I've got the Badgers by 25 into the second round.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Dave, this is a Montana team that won the Big Sky tournament. But I mean, I think we both see this as probably the weakest 14 seed and potentially one of the weakest squads in the tournament there, Dave. I mean, Wisconsin is they've had a red hot season from start to finish, and they are a gritty team. And the Big Sky, there's a little bit of grit in the Big Sky. There ain't Big Ten grittiness like what these Wisconsin Badgers have right now, Dave. This is, I'm telling you, man, I'm right there with you. I think Wisconsin is going to put the hurt on Montana.
Over into this 7-10 matchup. And how about this fun 7-10 matchup on Friday? St. Mary's, the Gales, taking on the Vanderbilt Commodores. And hey, this is an incredibly fun matchup between St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. And I went back and forth on this one, but I think the defense overall of St. Mary's is going to lead them to greatness. I think overall the way St. Mary's takes over the basket or takes care of the basketball, I should say, they've done a great job with it throughout this year. I think the one game that people are going to remember in their heads is that Gonzaga St. Mary's West Coast Conference Championship. And that's not a good showing of what this St. Mary's team is. St. Mary's didn't make a single three that night, and they also turned the ball over 16 times, and they still only lost the game by 8. That's incredible as far as I'm concerned. And they also hold 2 wins over Gonzaga earlier in the season. This St. Mary's team, if you're basing St. Mary's based off that game, that's wrong. Don't do that. If you're listening to this and you're going, well, they lost to Gonzaga. Doesn't matter to me. I've got St. Mary's. I've got them rolling by 15 plus over the Commodores.
Oh, I'm right there with you, Dave. I think the Gales absolutely crush Vandy here. Obviously, St. Mary's is going to put up 2 to 3 times as many shots, or it's going to seem that way than Vandy does because St. Mary's pulls up from everywhere. Vanderbilt is limping into this tournament as well. Look, the Gales their offensive rebounds, they get 40% of their misses. 40% they're bringing back down. That is second nationally, Dave. Look at the other side of it. Vanderbilt ranks outside the top 120 in defensive rebound rate. If you're not getting the rebound, St. Mary's is going to make you pay. And that's extra points that Vandy is going to be giving up throughout the game. And it's just going to compound, Dave. Like you said, 10, 15-point win here for St. Mary's for sure.
Yeah, one more thing I'll say about this Vanderbilt team before we move on. They suck at defending the three. They're in the bottom 30 nationally, bottom 30, not 30 percentage, 30 teams overall in allowing three-pointers, and they're also really bad in the bottom 25% for effective field goal percentage. This Vanderbilt defense just doesn't have what it takes to match up with St. Mary's in my eyes. Rolling on to a 15-2 matchup between Alabama and Robert Morris. The Tide roll here. Nothing more to say about it in my eyes, at least. I don't know if you've got something crazy over there, but I think we're both on the same page. The Tide shall roll.
No, yeah, absolutely. Keep it easy. Bama, despite injuries, is going to roll through Robert Morris.
Yeah, Grant Nelson injury, I'm glad you brought that up, is going to be one to watch there
Yep,
because
absolutely.
if without him, this is a way worse team. This is not a 2 seed of a basketball team without Grant Nelson. And so one to watch there. He's supposed to see a knee specialist sometime today. And so hopefully we'll have that information. You can find that on Twitter, on social media somewhere for the latest on Grant Nelson. Back up to the top of this East Regional. What you got for us,
I'll tell you
Miles?
this, Dave. I do not like hearing one of my star players is seeing a knee specialist in March. I will just lay that there, man. I do not love hearing that.
Oh, not you don't want to see that, especially when you're this team. They play Friday. You're 4 days away from them playing are 3 days away from them playing in the NCAA tournament. You don't want to hear that. That's not what you want to hear. And they need him. They need him bad because he's the difference maker for them. When Grant Nelson plays well for Alabama, they're one of the best teams in the country. They arguably are the best team in the country when Grant Nelson plays well.
Absolutely.
You take this team off, and not even talking about when Grant Nelson plays bad, but when he doesn't play at all, I don't know where this team shapes up, and I'm afraid we might have to see where this team shapes up. All right, back to the top of this round of 32 in the East region. I've got Duke taking on Mississippi State. Miles has Duke taking on Baylor. I think regardless, Cooper flag or not, Duke shall roll.
Duke rolls here, man. Unfortunately, Duke rolls.
Yeah, Duke is gonna. This is a really, really good Duke basketball team, and they'll book their spot at the round of 16 there. Liberty versus Arizona. That's what I've got there. Miles has Oregon versus Arizona. I think this Liberty team is really fun to watch, and I really did want to pick them over Arizona, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I think this Arizona team is really, really fun to watch. They fill up the box score. They do a lot of things right, way more things than Liberty does right. And the only thing is that Arizona doesn't force a lot of turnovers, and so that could come back to bite them. But I don't think it does here in this Liberty matchup. I like the Wildcats to book their spot in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, in this Oregon Arizona matchup that I have here, Dave, I'm gonna take the Ducks here. I think, like you said, Arizona does a lot of things the right way, but I think Oregon is playing so well. And again, this is another basically home game for Oregon, right? So that arena is going to be packed out with Ducks fans. And again, I mean, Arizona obviously not traveling as far as Liberty had to, but I think this is setting up for Oregon really nicely. I think they match up well with Arizona, and I have Oregon moving on to the round of 16 here.
I think over the past 10 years, looking at that Arizona Oregon matchup you've got there, that's a I don't want to say old time Pac-12 matchup because these two teams just shifted conferences, but to see them now in the
Oh,
Big Ten and Big
absolutely.
12, watching them, they've done well in their respective conferences this year, and they're both some of the top teams in the country, KenPom wise. So I'd love to see them face off there. Miles with the Ducks going on to the Sweet 16 there. I've got the Arizona Wildcats moving on to the Sweet 16. Over into the round of 32 between BYU and Wisconsin. I like the Badgers here, and I think part of me taking the Badgers could be damage control because of how nervous I am seeing BYU take on VCU. Just because I'm so, and Montana's listening to this, and they're going to come back and they're going to make me regret it if they beat Wisconsin. But I've got the Wisconsin Badgers. I've got them taking their spot in the Sweet 16. I don't think they're necessarily that much of a better team than BYU is, but I think overall Wisconsin does a ton of things right. They played well down the stretch, and they will take care of business as we head into the round of 16. I've got Wisconsin booking their spot in the Sweet 16.
I am rolling with BYU here again, Dave. I really like BYU, the momentum that they're playing with. They, like we just said, against VCU, we think they're going to roll there because they're just playing their best basketball of the season. I think it matches up well with Wisconsin here. Obviously, Wisconsin having one of their best seasons in recent memory, but you know what, man? I think BYU again. I think it's just this March. I know this is terrible analysis here, but I think it's just that March confidence, and they're just rolling right now, man. I the hot team. I'm going to continue to play that hot team until it bites me, and I think BYU is that team. I have them moving on against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate I originally when I made my bracket, and I hate changing my bracket. When I first make it, I'm like, I love sticking with my guts, and then I start overthinking it. I think that's something a lot of us do as we start going back through, looking at everything. And I had BYU going all the way to the Elite Eight actually at one point. But I think what came down to me for Wisconsin was John Tanji. I think him overall, what a player he is. KenPom has him as the 10th best player nationally, this senior guard for the Badgers. I think he'll be the difference maker in that one, but I don't hate the BYU pick at all. Down into both of us have this 7 versus 2 matchup Alabama and St. Mary's. And Miles, you're going to start noticing a trend here. This is something I did, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, where I was all in on the Gales. And I'm back again. Why not? I've got them taking down the Crimson Tide. I've got St. Mary's beating the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I think if Grant Nelson is there and he is fully healthy, which I think we can kind of rule out that he's going to be fully healthy, even if he's playing, if he's there and he's fully healthy, this Alabama team is unbelievable, and they are so tough to stop. But what I've seen from this St. Mary's team all year is they're going to match up well with Alabama. I like the Gales to control the pace of the game, and I like them to beat Alabama and move on to the Sweet 16.
You know, Dave, I'm waiting for our St. Mary's basketball gear to show up at our door because we have been the loudest singers for this St. Mary's Gales team the last few years, and we are both going back to the well again, man. Give me St. Mary's over Alabama.
Woo.
Listen, with Alabama's injuries, potential injuries, we don't know what the scenario is there, right? I mean, this could obviously hoping that the news is good for all of Alabama's players that might be limping into this tournament. But you're giving me a potential where you just talked about the impact, the absolute impact that he makes on this Alabama team. Without him, it's a huge difference, right? And I think St. Mary's, as well as their plan, is absolutely going to eat the Tide alive with that. I love the St. Mary's team, man. I think we both do. Give me St. Mary's to roll over the Tide.
Yeah, this is one of those. I mean, St. Mary's is a top 10 defense nationally, and they play it, I think, one of the 359th in tempo. And so they love slowing the game down, whereas Alabama is number one in all of America as far as tempo goes. They love getting up and down the floor. And typically, you like to think that the faster tempo team wins, but not when it's St. Mary's. They will control this game. They will force Alabama to slow it down, and they also defend the three really, really well. We know how Nate Oates coaches. We know how he likes to shoot the three.
Yes.
And so we've seen this Alabama team this year plenty of times where they've lost games because they couldn't shoot the three ball well. Well, that was that first game
Yep.
against Auburn they lost. They couldn't shoot it well, and so they lost. And I think that happens to them again here in the round of 32. We both have the Gales booking their spot over the Crimson Tide in the Sweet 16. Now let's get to these Sweet 16 matchups. Miles has Duke versus Oregon. I've got Duke versus Arizona. Miles has BYU taking on St. Mary's. I've got Wisconsin taking on St. Mary's. Let's start up top here. Duke versus Arizona for me. Blue Devils once again. Just roll on. That's it. Simply put, I like the Duke Blue Devils rolling. I mean, this team analytically and eye test wise, I think eye test wise you may have to lean Auburn, but without a doubt, when you look at the metrics, look at the numbers, and everything that Duke has done this year, this is the best team in college basketball from top to bottom. They've got a lot of guys. I saw a nice graphic from Evan Maya that shows the drop off from the number 1 guy to the number 8 guy on the roster, and Duke has the best 8th man in the country as far as his metrics show. And this Duke team is ready to roll. I like them to beat Arizona and book their spot in the Elite Eight.
Oh, like you said, Dave, I mean, this Duke team does everything right from top to bottom. Anybody they take off the bench is going to be there. I mean, this feels like a classic dominant Coach K era team, right? I mean, there's not much to say. It's just, yep, Duke is Duke. They're going to kill you from every angle possible. They're going to do that for me against a really good Oregon team. But it's this Duke team is so good, Dave. We're matching them up like you just said. Look at even Auburn there, but it's like no, we're going Duke. Like it just Duke is that dominant of a team this year. That and again, especially in the basketball triangle where basketball was not hot this year, and Duke just continued to roll anybody that was in their way. They're going to do that against Oregon here. I think Duke Blue Devils keep moving, keep rolling.
On that bottom half of the Sweet 16 in the East region, once again, Miles has BYU taking on St. Mary's. I've got Wisconsin taking on St. Mary's. And I know we just went through this whole thing with St. Mary's about how we've been their biggest fans for years. Why stop it there? I've got St. Mary's beating Wisconsin and going on to the Elite Eights. Give me the Gales out of the WCC, the West Coast Conference. St. Mary's to the Elite Eight. I did it 2 years ago and they lost round one. So I'm asking them not to do that again. And if you can just get past Vanderbilt, I can live with everything else. But please, St. Mary's, this is how it is. Miles and I both play in a massive bracket group where you've got to really set yourself apart to win. And I think St. Mary's will be that team that sets us apart. And St. Mary's books their spot into the Elite Eight. Give me the Gales over the Badgers.
Well, they better carry us, Dave, because I've got them moving on as well with you to match up with the Duke Blue Devils. Yes, give me St. Mary's, man. We're all about the Gales here, man. Yeah, I echo everything we had just said, right? I mean, this is a team that's on fire, uh, especially over BYU. I think St. Mary's can really pick apart the BYU problems that they have that we did talk about earlier this episode. The Gales, man, they are rolling.
Well, that brings us here to where we are in the Elite Eight in Newark, New Jersey. We've both got Duke taking on St. Mary's, and I maybe you're crazier than me. I don't know, but with St. Mary's, I've got Duke ending them right here. I've got Duke booking their spot into the Final Four.
Absolutely, I'm with you, Dave. A magical run comes to an end for the Gales here. Nothing, I mean, everything they can absolutely be proud of. And I'll tell you what, this isn't going to be like the previous couple games. Oh, yeah, Duke wins that one. I think St. Mary's is going to give them a game. I think Duke just has the players and just the deadly shooting to sink St. Mary's late in the game. But this Gales team is not going to go away during this Elite Eight game.
Yeah, I think this will be a fun back and forth matchup, but I agree with you there. I think the Duke Blue Devils, just too much. Just too much for them. And that wraps up the East region. Now we have 3 of our 4 Final Four teams. Miles has all 1 seeds so far, not to call you out with the chalk here, Miles, but all 1 seeds so far with Auburn, Florida, and Duke. I've got Iowa State, Florida, and Duke. So we both like Florida and Duke there as we now head into the Midwest region. And the 1 seed here is the Houston Cougars. They'll take on SIU Edwardsville in the round of 64. Houston, SIUE, I like the Cougars to roll.
Yeah, I think you have to like Houston here. They're just again kind of in a Duke sort of sense, just playing their best basketball right now, and I think they roll this Edwardsville team.
Could not agree more there with you as we move into a really, really fun, I think it's a sneaky good 8-9 matchup here between Gonzaga and Georgia. Gonzaga, they've made it to however many Sweet 16s in a row. They've been rolling, yada, yada, this, that. Give me Asa Newell and the Georgia Bulldogs to take down the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the Battle of the Bulldog. I'll take the Georgia out of the SEC, rolling on into the second round.
Man, yeah, Georgia. Well, listen, Dave. I mean, the Zags. Look, they don't have the resume that they've had in previous years, where we have just instantly put the Zags in the Elite Eight. Obviously, Georgia. Look, man, I this Georgia team. I just haven't trusted this year. Look, I know that that Mike White has absolutely have that team playing out of their minds. Hey, big wins too, right? This team Georgia has taken down St. John's, Florida, and Kentucky all in this one season. Now, here's again, what do we talk about, Dave? Fouls and turnovers. The Zags are a top 5 team in avoiding turnovers, while Georgia ranks 291st in that stat. If listen, man, if the Zags offense can really get rolling to the point that we've seen during this season, I think they have enough to take down the Dogs. And so I am taking Gonzaga to move on to the second round. Again, I think turnovers are going to be the key here. But a fantastic first round matchup.
Oh yeah, all these 8-9 matchups as we look across just all the regions, they're all terrific. And this one I think is everyone's looking at it as the most lopsided one in favor of Gonzaga, just because I mean the metrics love this Zags team, and for good reason. I mean, this Gonzaga team played a tough non-conference. They take care of the ball well. They play well defensively. There's just something about this Georgia team that I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I will take Georgia. I don't really have a lot of reason behind it. Just kind of one of those feelings that I'm getting here
Yeah.
because like you said, everything points towards Gonzaga here, and I'll take Georgia as we move on down. Into our 5-12 matchup on Thursday, Clemson and McNeese State. Will Wade leading this McNeese squad. And McNeese was a very popular pick last year, and they let
Yeah.
everybody down. What do you think, Miles? You taking them this year?
I am not. I'm not going to take them this year, Dave. Listen, this is Clemson's highest seed in the tournament since 2018. And of course, look, McNeese led by the former LSU coach, Will Wade, right? I mean, Will Wade is the big name out there, coaching wise. But I'll tell you, man, I mean, look, McNeese has put up a fight in big games. We obviously saw them against Mississippi State this year, right? This McNeese team is nothing to shy away from. I'll tell you this though, man. These are both very slow paced teams, so it's gonna be again who fouls the least amount and limit the turnovers. McNeese, listen, they were similar caliber last year, and then I mean they just got blasted by Gonzaga. Um, I think Clemson. Listen, man, this is a tough game. I know for a 5-12 game because McNeese has that hype around them, but I'm gonna go with Clemson. By the way, I say all this, Dave. I despise the ACC this year outside of Duke, obviously. So I think Clemson wins this. I think this potentially could be one of the uglier 5-12 games.
In this 5-12 matchup, and I like what you said there. I think the ACC is garbage. Simply put, outside, I don't like the ACC this year. We know how good Duke is. Duke could be doing what they're doing in every conference. Everyone who's out there saying that Duke wouldn't be able to do this in the SEC is wrong. I think, simply put,
Hundred
just
percent.
because of how good this Duke team is from top to bottom. I like Louisville. We talked about them, how I have them beating Auburn, but I don't like Clemson. I don't like Clemson here. I mean, McNeese State has won. They've got the fourth longest winning streak active in the country. They've won 11 straight games. They've won, I think it is 23 of their past 24 games, dating back to that loss they took in Starkville on December 14th against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I mean, yes, they play in a weak conference, but winning that many games in a row or winning or going 19-1 or really 21-1 in conference, when you look at what they've done, I like them there. I do like they both play at a slow pace. And so these two teams both get down, get gritty with it. I think this McNeese team is better than the one that we saw take on Gonzaga last year. And I think that for that reason, I will take McNeese State to beat Clemson. And one thing here before we
Woo-hoo-hoo,
move forward,
chaos.
we've seen. Hey, I don't know if you heard the rumblings over there in Carolina about Will Wade being linked to that North Carolina State opening. What do you think about that over there?
NC State has no shot of landing him. I will tell you that right now. They have zero shot. They are happy with the crap that they've had the last few years. Look at their football situation, Dave. They continue to let Dave Doran coach their football team. They don't care about winning. Just like with basketball, they let that experiment go on way too long. Anyways, not to rant on the Wolfpack, but no, it would be Herculean to get Wade to Raleigh.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of rumblings on Twitter about him, having his flight booked there, or he's already been there, this and that, and people are
Oh,
just talking the talk. There's no way
they're
that
just
that is happening. They'd have to bring out the Brinks truck to get him there. Um, Moving on down
yes.
into our 4-13 game. This is a fun matchup because I think historically we've seen Purdue, and we know what Purdue does come March, with the exception of of coming off being a national title contender. We know they've lost to 16 seeds. They've lost to bad teams before, and this High Point team, High Point coming in, playing some of the best offense in the entire country. They play incredible offense. They like getting up and down the floor. They like scoring the basketball, and they like playing well. They play very efficiently, and they do a great job taking care of the basketball as well. And to say all that, I'm going with Purdue. Give me the Boilermakers to beat High Point. I think Purdue just matches them really well. I think Braden Smith will have a field day with what he can do. Obviously, he's set the Big Ten record with assists, and he takes care of the basketball really well. I just don't think McNeese will bring enough to the table to be able to really test this Purdue Boilermakers team. I've got Purdue beating High Point.
Yeah, Dave, this High Point team is nothing to sneer at here. I mean, I know one of my great friends, Kendall Smith, has done a lot of sideline reporting with ESPN for High Point this year. By the way, Dave, High Point University, if you've never seen their new basketball arena, buckle up. It's one of the most incredible arenas you've ever seen.
I've seen it on TV. It looks incredible, and we saw it. I think yesterday when they unveiled, or Sunday when they unveiled the bracket, and you could see all the fans behind them. I mean, everybody's ready to
Oh,
go and support this High Point team.
unbelievable. And why not? I mean, this potentially could be a Cinderella team this year. I mean, this isn't just a another mid-major with a potential, right? This is one of the best offensive teams down the stretch. Dave, they rank 32nd in offensive efficiency since February 1st. In that time, shooting a dazzling 59% from the field. That is unbelievable. Led by Kezagifa, who loves to attack the hoop from behind the arc as well as driving the lane. This is a High Point team, again, in the Big South Championship game. High Point's fully capable of putting up, I mean, we saw 11 players get into double digit either scoring or assists. So High Point is a team that is loaded from top to bottom. Here's the problem, Dave. Their defense is what is going to bite them. Purdue
It's
is
terrible,
gonna
man. It's
match
bad.
it. Yes, it is horrendous. 173rd in defensive efficiency since February 11th. Again, this is you know me, Dave. I'm an offensive guy, but if your defense sucks, you got no chance in March. Purdue is going to put up points in this game. We know that, right? I mean, Purdue, yes, Purdue's defense, they could have problems there too. High Point could get, but I'm telling you, man, this Purdue offense is just on another level. They're just High Point's just not going to be able to keep up with them, and I think Purdue is absolutely going to move on here, but. I know there's a lot of hype around a potential Cinderella story with High Point here. Man, the matchup just isn't there for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I just don't think when you look at how good this Purdue team is and how well they match up with High Point, I don't see it there. I'm glad we're on the same page there because I had a feeling I was going to be made. I feel like High Point could make us both look silly. Now, at least I won't be
They
alone
could.
in that. But no, I think we're in agreement. I like Purdue to move on. Moving down into our 6-11 matchup. That 11 seed game will be determined tomorrow between Texas and Xavier. And I'll be honest here, I've got Xavier written in over Illinois. I think you give me Trey Johnson and Tremont Mark in Texas. I'll take them over Illinois as well. Historically, the whoever is in these play-in games, one of these first four teams moves on to the round of 32 at least. And I like Xavier to be the team this year, but I'll take Xavier or Texas. I'll take them over the Illini of Illinois. Nothing they've done has really been very just jumped out at me. Like, this is a really good Illinois team. These two mid-majors, or not mid-majors, these two of the last four at-large teams in the field, I like them to beat Illinois.
Yeah, Dave, defensively, the Illini really, really scare me here, ranking 155th in defensive efficiency over their last 10 games, which means they're kind of regressing as of lately. Also, their turnover rate has boosted up in those last 10 games up to 10.9%. They're also allowing teams in that time frame to shoot 41% from beyond the arc. That's scary numbers for me. With Illinois penciled in here to move on, I'm still going to take Illinois. I think this is going to be a great matchup, whether it's Texas or Xavier. I'm going to take Illinois to sneak past in a game, but their journey will not be long after. But I think they can get out of this round. Um, but defensively, they just scare me, and I think that's why they're going to have a short run here. So I am yeah, I am. I'm going to take Illinois here. Scarily, I'm holding on to the table as I'm saying that, Dave. But give me Illinois.
Yeah, I don't blame. I think there's a big just the Illini. I just don't like them, and I really if Texas wins, I'll come back and I'll reconsider it. I will, just because I don't love this Texas team. I don't love how they closed the season. They didn't look great throughout conference play. They've got some dudes. They've got some guys for Texas. But either way, right now, speaking, I'll take Xavier to beat Illinois. No doubt about it. Over into our Kentucky and Troy matchup. Now, hey, we've seen Kentucky lose like this before. Haven't we? That was in the John Calipari era, though. I
Oh,
think Mark Pope
absolutely.
starting off starting off something different here. I like Kentucky to roll over Troy.
Buckle up, Dave. We have a potential Cinderella here in Troy. And people are going to be driving off the road being like, what the hell is this guy saying, Troy? No, give me Troy. And I'm going to tell you why, Dave. So Kentucky is going to be without, most likely is going to be without a lot of players here against against Troy. There is at least, let's see, one, two, also starting point guard Lamont Butler. We don't know what's going on there. So 3 to 4 big key players for Kentucky. We just don't know what their situation here is, Dave. And like we said earlier, just kind of like with Alabama, if I don't know and I've got a hungry team in Troy, because here's the thing. Troy, look, their turnover rate is egregious. 333rd turnover rate in the country per Ken Pom. That's not great. I do not love that. But I'll tell you what, Kentucky does not force a ton of turnovers either. If you watch this team play, Kentucky kind of plays their own games and waits for a mistake to happen. But the Wildcats, listen, they looked vulnerable, especially without Lamont Butler on the court. I think this is a very sneaky game where Troy's going to hang around just enough. And Kentucky, again, if they've got guys on the court that haven't been playing the minutes they're going to be forced to play in this game, I think Troy's going to make them pay, Dave. I think this is a grit your teeth and pull the lever and take them here type situation. But I am taking my biggest upset of the tournament is Troy over Kentucky. So far, at least in the first round, Troy over Kentucky.
Whew, I mean, that's a big time pick right there. And I don't blame you for doing it. I mean, you're right. This Kentucky team is beat up. They've got a lot of injuries they're dealing with. And I think that Kentucky just has too many athletes for a team like Troy. Troy is not quite where I want them to be offensively for at least me to take them 2 beats at Kentucky just because they don't shoot the ball really well. They do all right in the 2 point range against their type of competition. But Kentucky, I mean, Kentucky lights it up from 3. They light it up from 2. They get out and run. They play really fast. They play really efficient. And I like that to be enough to get them past Troy. But I don't like the Kentucky team to go far, but I like them enough to get past Troy. Over into our 7-10 matchup. This one is a flip a coin, as far as I'm concerned. UCLA and Utah State. I mean, I really didn't know who to go with here. I'm taking the Bruins just because the analytics are telling me to. Utah State runs a good zone that can give UCLA some problems, but I think that UCLA will just be able to do or win one more loose ball, win one more possession to give UCLA the game in a close one and a fun one to watch on Thursday evening.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Dave. Utah State's just going to make too many mistakes here, man. I mean, they obviously the Aggies rank outside the top 200 in defensive efficiency. That since February 1st. And I mean, in the Mountain West semis, man. I mean, my Colorado State Rams, man, they absolutely put it to Utah State. It'll be interesting to see how this Bruins team really plays this game here because like you said, it's just kind of a weird matchup of like, man, like Utah State could legitimately win this game, but I don't see it happening. I'll take UCLA here. I think they're going to make Utah State pay, especially turnovers and underneath the hoop. I mean, listen to this, man. Utah State allows teams to shoot 56% from inside the arc. The Bruins are going to eat that up, man. Whether it's rebounding or just driving the lane, that's UCLA's game, and that is not going to spell good for Utah State. I'll take UCLA to move on here.
Into our 15-2 matchup, our final first round matchup as we close out this round of 64 in the Midwest region. Tennessee taking on Wofford. And Wofford here, I mean, the Terriers are not bad. This is not a bad team. They've got 15 losses. I was kind of surprised that they weren't a 16 seed. Personally, I could have seen one of those other 16 seeds getting bumped up, like an American or like somebody else, to that 15 line. I don't think Wofford is necessarily overseeded. They're just the worst of the 15 seeds in my eyes. And I think Tennessee, I mean, top 20 offense, top 3 defense. Tennessee rolls.
Dave, I'm going to tell you this. I think Tennessee has the best defense in the country. They're ranked top three. I think they should be number one. Look at this Wofford team, man. They have some of the slowest adjusted tempo in the country. That's completely opposite of Tennessee. They are going to make you pay every second of the game. Tennessee totally controls this game and moves on with it.
Yeah, glad we can agree there. This Tennessee team, I mean, this is a national title contender in Tennessee, without a doubt. On to our round of 32 here. I've got Houston taking on Georgia, and I will take the Cougars to beat the Bulldogs. Georgia, they pull off that big time win over Gonzaga. Does not carry the momentum over Houston. They roll into the Sweet 16.
I'm right there with you. I'll keep it easy, man. I think they roll over Gonzaga. I think it's just an absolute mismatch on all sides of the court. Houston is going to dominate Gonzaga here.
Yeah, no doubt about that one. Moving on down, uh, Miles has Clemson taking on Purdue. I've got McNeese State taking on Purdue, and I will take the Boilermakers to get back to the Sweet 16. This Purdue team, I don't love them. I'll be honest. I don't like this Purdue team a lot. I do think they do enough efficiently to get past High Point and McNeese State into the Sweet 16. I've got Purdue moving on.
Dave, I have Purdue moving on against Clemson, and I actually do like this Purdue team. I mean, I think I've always going back through the years of our shows, I always seem to have a soft spot for Purdue, and I'm going to keep it here, man. I mean, like we said, not a fan of the ACC this year. I think Clemson gets rolled by Purdue here. Um, I really like this Purdue team to really get on a run here, man. I'm gonna roll with the Boilermakers. Yeah, keep it rolling, man.
Hey, I like it. I like that pick. We're both in agreement there. We've got Houston and Purdue moving on into the Sweet 16 so far. Down into this one, Miles has the Illinois Fighting Illini taking on the Troy Trojans. I've got penciled in Xavier taking on Kentucky, and keep that pencil with that eraser handy just in case something happens to Xavier tomorrow night in their first 4 game. But I've got Xavier moving on to the Sweet 16. We talked about Kentucky, how they are beat up with so many injuries, and I like them enough to get past Troy, but not enough to get past Xavier or Texas or Illinois, really. I've got Xavier moving on to the Sweet 16.
Whoo, Dave, let me tell you this, man. We've got some wild plays moving into the Sweet 16 because I have Troy taking down Illinois.
Oh,
And I have them
oh
moving
man.
on to a sensational matchup after that. We'll see how far Troy goes after that. But I think Troy's going to build off that momentum of taking down the Wildcats. If they can take down Kentucky, I think they can take down Illinois here. Because again, all those concerns that you laid out, Dave, about Illinois struggles, I think those come into play here, and I think Troy makes them pay, man. I think this is another potential Cinderella team.
Man, I would love to see it. I wish I saw the Detroit Trojans the way you did. I mean, there's a lot of great teams coming out of the state of Alabama. Of course, I grew up about an hour and a half north of Troy, and Troy is a fun team to watch play basketball. I don't see them the way you do, but we've got some fun ones coming out of this little quadrant here. I've got Xavier moving on to the Sweet 16. Miles has Troy moving on to the Sweet 16. Down into our final round of 32 matchup, UCLA taking on Tennessee. Give me Rick Barnes and the Vols. I mean, this path that Tennessee has here is almost a cakewalk, I think, personally. The Volunteers, I was reading up on some Tennessee fan boards. They were talking about, we saw them a couple of days ago talking about how they should be the 1 seed over Florida. Then they saw the path that they got versus the path that Florida got as a 1 seed, and they were like, actually, we will take this path that we have as a 2 seed. We will take it. And they've earned it. I'll say that much. The Tennessee Vols, I've got them moving on to the Sweet 16.
Yes, I'm right there with you, Dave. I mean, this Vols team is just holy smokes. I mean, from top to bottom, they are just offensively alone, they are unbelievable. There is no chance in my eyes that UCLA is going to be able to slow them down, and it's. I agree. I think they absolutely have the potential to be a 1 seed, but I think for Vols fans, they are much happier to deal with Wofford and UCLA or Utah State than the Florida route, Dave.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, Florida's got that you're either playing UConn or playing Oklahoma in the second round if you're Florida. And I mean, both those teams are better than UCLA and Utah State. So Tennessee, they got themselves a great path here. So now getting into our Sweet 16 here, I have Houston, Purdue, Xavier, and Tennessee. Miles has Houston, Purdue, Troy, and Tennessee. And now let's get into the Sweet 16. Houston versus Purdue. I like Kelvin Sampson and the Cougars, and this is the most disrespected one seed this year. Everyone's talking bad about Houston. This team went 19-1 in the Big 12. They beat some great teams in the non-conference. This is a really, really good team. The metrics love them. My eye test loves them. I've got Houston beating Purdue into the Elite Eight.
Dave, I'm going to shake things up on you here, man. I think Purdue in a thriller takes down Houston. And I that is maybe the ballsiest play I've had on here besides Troy taking down Illinois. But no, man, I really, there's something about Purdue, man. I don't know, whenever I watch them play, I feel like they are just world beaters, man. And Houston as a one seed, we've seen great Houston teams recently, right, Dave? And for some reason, I think this hey, listen, call me an idiot. I might be an idiot. I am an idiot, but I don't love this Houston team as much as I have in years past. And I just love what Purdue is able to do on offense. I mean, they control the play, right? And I think everything that Purdue is going to learn in the games, especially against High Point. I think High Point game is going to be huge in them coming to this game here. I think High Point is going to show them their weaknesses in their game. They're going to clean it up, roll against Clemson, and I think they take down Houston in an absolute thriller. A potential, this could be a 2 or 3 point game final score, Dave. I think this is no disrespect to Houston. They're going to be right there, but I think Purdue gets the last shot.
Yeah, no, I sign me up for that type of matchup, and I love it, and I would love to see that kind of matchup in the Sweet 16. Uh, I've got Houston. I think they roll pretty well there. I mean, Matt, I love Houston more than I've loved them in the past years. I guess I think that's where we differentiate. And
Mm-hmm.
if you've listened to our episodes in years past, we've gotten a lot of these same teams over and over again. So it's probably healthy for us to differentiate some because we both typically do very poorly on this. So maybe one of us will end up doing pretty well, hopefully, as we move on down to our last Sweet 16 matchup. Miles has Troy taking on Tennessee. I've got Xavier taking on Tennessee, and I'll take the Vols here. I mean, you talk about this path. We just got done talking about Tennessee's path and how much of a cakewalk it was, and let the cake keep coming, if I can say that correctly. The Tennessee Vols roll into the Elite Eight.
Yeah, man. Let's try to say that 3 times in a row. I'm with you, man. I think Troy. I think they're going to shake things up for some people, but this Tennessee team. I mean, I don't think there's many teams in the country that can match up well with them. I'm absolutely taking the Vols with you there. Troy's magical run ends there. No shame in it though, because Tennessee again, it's going to be very hard to find a team that can beat this Volunteers.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get right to this Elite Eight matchup. I've got Houston taking on Tennessee. Miles has Purdue taking on Tennessee. And I think that Houston's road comes to a close here. I've got the Tennessee Volunteers. They beat the Houston Cougars and move on to the Final Four. And it's nothing against Houston. I think this Houston team is great, but I think Tennessee is the team to watch in this region. I love how this Tennessee Vols team plays, and if they can knock down their 3-point shots along with how good their defense is, they can win the whole thing. They can do it. I'm not saying I'm picking them. I'm just saying they can do it. I've got them beating Houston and moving on to the national semifinals and the Final Four.
Yep, I'll follow right with you, Dave. I have the Vols taking the win there. Like you said, man. I mean, it's what they're doing on all sides of the ball. It's tough to beat. It's really really tough to beat. It's gonna take a world class team to knock them out of this tournament. And unfortunately, Purdue is not that team in my eyes. So I think we are setting up with Tennessee moving on. I think we are setting up one of the most elite Final Fours in recent memory.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And let's dive right into this Final Four here. We've gotten through all those regions there. I mean, what a gauntlet. What a bracket this is. It is insane this year. And right now, Miles has Auburn, Florida, Duke, and Tennessee. And I have got Iowa State, Florida, Duke, and Tennessee. And let's start there on the left side of that bracket. I've got Iowa State taking on Florida. Miles has Auburn taking on Florida. And I think the Cyclones' road comes to an end here. I think that comes to an end in a beatdown, personally. I think, once again, I said it earlier in the show, Iowa State has a 14 seed, 6 seed, 10 seed, and 12 seed on their path to the Final Four, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that once they meet up with a team like the Florida Gators, the Gators will chomp them up there. I've got Florida beating Iowa State by 25 and moving on to the national championship.
Yeah, Dave, this is the elite group of teams in the country. I mean, you can, without even going through the process, you can tell that probably three of whether, for me, I've got Auburn, Florida, Duke, and Tennessee, right? And I'm pretty sure 99% of people in the country have at least three of those four teams in there. And again, Iowa State. I love that Iowa State team, and I think they do deserve to be close to that. But like you said, you get in that elite zone, you're gonna get chomped, and that's what's gonna happen there. And I'm actually gonna take Florida to take down Auburn. Auburn on a sensational run to get there. But like, man, how can you discount this Florida team? They are going to roll their way there, and why would they stop at Auburn? I mean, I first of all, hey, as SEC people in my bracket, having three or four SEC teams, maybe a little SEC bias, but no, man, this Florida team is just out playing out of their minds, and obviously knock on wood and everything that they stay healthy throughout that entire run. But yeah, that's a gauntlet to get there, and Florida is going to continue to just dominate. I think they beat Auburn, maybe not by 25 points there, Dave, like Iowa State, but no, I think Florida wins this game. Give me a 75-67 type score, where they just maintain control, man. I mean, I think that's what Florida does best. Is their games are in their control the entire time. The other team has no shot of getting control of a game, and I think that's why they are such a successful team, and they're going to be successful in March.
Hey, sign me up for another matchup between Auburn and Florida, man. Sign me up for it. I would love to
Absolutely.
see that. And we both are in agreement here that we both have Florida in the national championship game. And I'm scared we're about to come out with the other same team on the other side of the bracket, as we both have Duke taking on Tennessee in the Final Four. And what a matchup this is going to be. But I think that there's just no stopping this Duke Blue Devils team, led by Cooper Flagg and all the elite talent that Duke has. They've rolled through the season, rolled through the ACC. They're now facing these recent injury tests. I don't think it will really matter with the path that they have to the Final Four. I like them to be fully healthy, if they can hopefully be fully healthy, come this April 5th national semifinal. I've got the Duke Blue Devils taking down the Tennessee Volunteers in San Antonio to move on to the national championship.
Yeah, Dave, I'm glad you said that, man. I mean, again, I think Cooper Flagg is a big question mark. I mean, if they have him fully healthy this late in the tournament, I mean, absolutely, Duke's going to continue to roll. And I still think they roll over Tennessee here, just like you. I really like this Duke team again, kind of like Florida, man. They're just a machine. They as from tip off until the final buzzer, Duke is just an absolute machine. And I think Tennessee, of that entire side of the bracket, is the best matchup for them. And again, by the way, Dave, I mean, if we get a Duke Tennessee matchup, I think as fans, we aren't even going to care who wins, because that's just going to be a magical game. But yeah, give me Duke, man. I love Duke playing their way into the national championship against Florida here.
And now we have reached the national championship game. Both of us have Florida taking on Duke, a battle of one seeds. And I think when you look throughout all of every bracket created, I think the most frequent championship matchup is going to be Florida versus Duke for good reason. I think
Yep.
this is like when you go back a few years and you look at Gonzaga versus Baylor. in that game. And everybody had Gonzaga playing Baylor in the championship, and everybody who didn't was saying it wasn't going to be that easy. And it will be. Florida will play Duke for the national title. I think this is where you get kind of like this and that, and how good Florida's been, how good Duke has been, so on. I'm taking the Blue Devils. It wouldn't surprise me to see the Gators be favored in this game with how good they've played recently, but I'm taking Duke to cut down the nets and win the national title. I think Florida is the fun, trendy pick to win it all, but I think when you look at going back to the start of this season, Duke has been the best team in all of college basketball. They keep going. Cooper Flagg gets an NCAA title before he gets taken number 1 overall in the draft. Duke wins. I think it's a close one, though. I'll take a fun, very fun championship game on April 7th in San Antonio. Give me the Duke Blue Devils.
Dave, in a maybe trendy pick with a final score of 72-64, I'm taking the Florida Gators. I am taking the Gators to finish the job. And what a way to finish over the Duke Blue Devils, who are undoubtedly the other top team in the country. Florida on an absolute, listen, again, Norfolk State, whatever, but UConn, potentially Colorado State, potentially Texas Tech, potentially having to beat Auburn as well. I think they are, if they can get to that point, they are going to be playing at a level they haven't even reached yet this year. The three-pointers are going to be absolutely flying. And again, I think it's going to be, fairly close game with Florida getting some foul shots at the end with a 72-64 final. I'm telling you, though, Dave, I love this Gators team. I am literally pounding the table right now for the Florida Gators. But I think if we are lucky enough as fans to get a Florida Duke matchup, I don't think anybody can have any complaints, because that will be just instant cinema, absolute masterpiece to cap off an incredible March Madness tournament. But I'm taking the Gators, man. So look at that, man. So you got Duke, and I'm taking the Gators. How about that?
Hey, talk about it. Talk about some fun stuff here. And I can only hope that it goes the same way that when we both had Gonzaga and Baylor, and you took Gonzaga and I took Baylor, and somehow the Baylor Bears pulled it out. I can only hope that I get so lucky again.
That was, if for the fans listening and all the listeners out there, you have never seen such a surgical analysis of a tournament like Mr. Dave Smith and with the Baylor Bears that year. This man was all in on them from the beginning, and boy, did it ever pay off. So that is expertise, man. If nobody can ever question your analysis after absolutely nailing that all year. I mean, we talked in January of that year about Baylor. This is your championship team, man. Unbelievable pick.
Hey, dude, I think you might be right on this one with Florida, though. I won't lie. I feel like so many people are going to be all over the Gators. That's something. I guess something. I hope nobody gets hurt or anything, but there's just something about them that just doesn't feel right, and I don't know what it is.
It's never
but
good. Yeah, it's never good when everybody's all on one side with a team, like those Gonzaga teams that we've seen in the past, it's everybody's all in, and then it's like, uh-oh, here comes the second round or third round, and it's bad news for the Zags. But like you said, man, I think we've really, really nailed especially the opening rounds here. I love that, a lot of the stuff we're on the same page for, but some things we're seeing differently. And I think it's really, really going to set us up for success during this tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be an insane one to watch, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to what an episode, what a gauntlet of a tournament to get through. Of course, Miles and I do this every year. We go back and we go through these tournaments, and it's just an incredible time to watch. So, Miles, thank you for joining me here on Hoops Talk with Dave.
Absolutely, Dave. It's an honor to be on here anytime you ask, man. I absolutely love talking hoops. This has been a great tradition since COVID. How about that, man? Since COVID. Since the COVID
throwing
days,
some PTSD here around March now. We can't be
Woo! Now look at us all grown up,
there. Hey, who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd be here? Who would have thought? But once again, thank you, Miles, for joining me here on Hoops Talk with Dave. Miles, has Florida cutting down the nets in San Antonio. I've got Duke taking home the championship. What a great tournament it's going to be. Once again, I'll be back with you tomorrow morning for a brief breakdown of our Wednesday night games as we get into the second half of the first four. And then Thursday, the action gets started. Make sure everybody gets their bracket in submitted Thursday morning before we get rolling. I'm Dave Smith. Once again, thank you, Miles Conrad, for joining us here on Hoops Talk with Dave. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning.